I was brought up a hardcore Christian. I went to church every week, and I prayed to God every night. I lived my life under the guiding principles I was taught. I remember how I used to be amazed at how God could create our universe, and the total power he wielded, and what a great guy he must have been. Then I turned 12. Now, while I admit true belief is not something exclusive to the young, growing up did have a lot to do with my current beliefs. When you're young, you don't question much. You believe that a jolly man hundreds of years old brings you gifts on a magical sleigh pulled by flying deer, a bunny hides plastic eggs with candy in them, and some fairy will pay good money for some newly dropped calcium deposits. You also may believe that superhero is a viable career choice. Now, this neither confirms nor denies the existence of God. However, what I take from this scenario is the overwhelming number of people that are taught a religion and remain in that religion until their death. Included among these ranks are those that are not very righteous about their religion, or ones that do not even take it seriously. Also included are the diehards, those that were taught a religion from birth and wholeheartedly believe it to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help them God. The point being is that my growing up allowed me to ask many questions about religion, more specifically questions about Christianity. My first major problem was with hell, and what would cause someone to go there. I would have to classify myself as being only slightly open-minded when it came to changing my views. It took much effort, thought, and time to change from a true believer to a skeptic with morals. At one time, Oprah Winfrey read a prayer on her show, for reasons I can't really remember. She asked everyone to join in and pray to whatever God they prayed to, and I pointed a finger at the TV and righteously proclaimed, "You should all be on your knees praying to the Lord." I've come a long way. There are many open-minded people out there. People have converted from one major form of religion to the other throughout the ages. From Judaism to Christianity, Christianity to Islam, Islam to Christianity, Christianity to Buddhism. People have changed their core beliefs. Even though some of these people have to be wrong, since most religions cannot coexist, meaning that if any religion is right, then the others would have to be wrong, these people are to be commended. They are, for the most part, more open-minded than I was. They were able to admit that they can be wrong, and were in control of their pride enough to admit it, some admitting it in a place where the penalty for such an action was death. The group I wish to concentrate on for this series are the hardcore believers. Many of those with whom I have spoken have said that there is nothing that could ever convince them to change their beliefs. I have asked many of them, what evidence would you have to see before you would reconsider your beliefs? Is there anything you could see or hear, any bit of evidence, that would weaken your resolve? Almost every time, to be perfectly honest, every time, those hardcore believers have responded with a simple no to this question. While not all believers are like that, many are. The issue with this blind faith is that it is much more than that. By having blind faith in something, you believe in something that has no evidence to prove it. It enters a totally different realm, however, once you bring in evidence that contradicts it. It is no longer blind faith at that point. It would then have to be classified as irrational faith. Thereby, if one says that they would not change their beliefs even in the face of overwhelming evidence, this is an example of irrational faith. I'm not saying that God has been proven to not exist, or that all religious faith is assuredly irrational. I'm merely pointing out that there are those that openly admit to accepting a situation that would require irrational faith. They would still believe in something no matter what evidence is against it. This is what is known in the psychological community as confirmation bias. Confirmation bias refers to the way the brain interprets information in a manner that is safer for the ego. Oftentimes people, especially in reference to religion, but also political or any other type of belief really, will only see, understand, and cite information that agrees with their stance. Through confirmation bias, a person could subconsciously pick out the one sentence that agrees with their stance in a paragraph meant to prove it wrong. So, take a population brought up with a strong Christian background. All of their lives they've been told the Bible is the truth, not to mention that questioning the Bible could lead to an eternity of suffering in hell. The brain interprets this reality, and automatically, subconsciously, filters out information that disagrees with the status quo. The polarity of political parties and the low percentage of people who cross over is more evidence of this. My point into all of this is to say that once we believe something, it is hard to dissuade ourselves. It's basic human nature. This was the first idea that came to me that caused me to question God and his existence. Birth has a strong, though not perfect, influence over your belief. Since you are much more likely to stay in the religion you were born into, how is that fair? I am of course referring to the fact that many religions believe that not believing in that particular faith has a penalty of damnation. How is it fair that what family you were born into so strongly affects what your life beliefs will be, especially when those life beliefs determines your eternity? It is often drilled into the heads of many children to believe in one particular God, and if one were to question it, in many but not all circumstances, that would result with some type of punishment, be it verbal, physical, or through socially ostracizing them in the family. What percentage of people this happens to is irrelevant. What is important is that it does happen. The very fact that birth has any influence over belief is strong evidence against believing in hell, since God wouldn't punish us for things that are not our own fault. Of course, many people go against the grain, but it is only important to note that you have a much better chance of dying a Christian if you were also born a Christian. When this question is posed, many people rebut my argument with a simple response: free will. God granted us free will. It is our choice whether or not to follow him. Those that choose to follow him and believe in his name will be saved, and those who don't will suffer eternal damnation in hell with Satan and his angels. According to this, it is our choice, and only our choice, of whether or not we get into heaven. The second part of the Philosophical Proof series will deal directly with free will, and show why it is an inadequate explanation for God's judgment.